Hi everyone, it's Nana again. And I thought I might try to talk about one more thing today. And that's judgment, because it's something that I'm working on every day. Those of you who know me from Facebook know that I'm pretty impassioned about activism and politics. It's very important to me, pretty much because I believe that we need to fight for people who cannot fight for themselves. And sometimes I'm that person who can't fight for myself. And out of gratitude for everybody who fought for me when I couldn't fight, I fight when I can. And I'm working on focusing at the task at hand and not being so judgmental about people, because I did learn this some time ago, at least 15 years ago or more, maybe about 18 years ago or so. I had learned that we aren't really ever in a position to judge somebody simply because nobody's done, nobody's complete, nobody's finished. We're all in the process of becoming. And how I came across this was just using this analogy that if I had stumbled upon the art studio where Leonardo da Vinci was painting the Mona Lisa, but maybe he was only like 2 days into the Mona Lisa, what I would see is maybe a straw man, maybe a background with a straw man, but I wouldn't see a finished painting yet. But if I were to look at Leonardo and say, "Hey, wait a minute, I thought you were this, grand painter. What is this? That's like a background and like some chicken scratch." Um, and Leonardo were to look at me and say, "Hey, listen, Selena, I'm only like 2 or 3 days in. Wait until this is done. This is going to be legendary, and it's going to hang in the Louvre, and people are going to talk about this for the next several hundred years to come." But right now, you're not seeing that because you're just seeing it when it's very close to being created. It's not done yet. It's still becoming. It's 3 days in. And so I have to remind myself to look at people like that too. That if I'm looking at somebody and I'm not seeing someone I can respect or someone that I can even like sometimes, that I'm not seeing the finished product. I'm just seeing somebody who's a work in progress, like the Mona Lisa on its third day. And I myself have been that work in progress. I think back to a younger me, and gosh, I really hope that somebody wouldn't judge me when I was maybe, say, 20 or 19, for example, because I was a Republican. Shh. I was also, maybe not the nicest at different points in my life. I remember having these conversations with my first husband about the care of his family, his parents who were in their 40s at the time, and being incredibly judgmental about that, and then spending my entire 40s dealing with cancer and thinking, wow, it would have been nice to have a kid old enough to take care of me. So sometimes things come back to bite us, and we learn that we're all in the process of becoming. And hopefully, I'm always going to be evolving, but closer and closer and closer to my nature. So hopefully, I'm not in the same place that I was when I was 18, 19, 20, now that I'm almost turning 50. So um, I like to take pride in how I've evolved as a person, my value system. I remember a time when I had no compassion for homeless people. Um, and those of you who know me know that I trade in my 7-Eleven points to buy bananas for homeless people on a regular basis and all the nonprofits that I volunteer for, because I have changed the way that I think about these things. I have evolved. And so why should I deny somebody their process of evolution if I'm still in my process of evolution? And I do it sometimes. I catch myself because, man, with this administration and the people who come out of the woodwork, it gets really easy to be judgmental. And I'm guilty of it a lot. But I'm refocusing, and I'm getting back to my roots, and I'm remembering what I learned before we had stuff in front of us that we had to do. And I'm going to preface it that way because um, just because I can have acceptance that people aren't exactly where they're going to be later in their evolution doesn't mean that I'm going to sit back either, because as I revise the things that I've learned, part of what I learned came from the Bhagavad Gita, which teaches us that we are bound to do our duty. We are not necessarily entitled to the fruits of our actions. However, we do have a duty that we are obligated and bound to do. And if we don't learn that this time around, maybe we'll learn it the next time around. But part of what Krishna counseled Arjun to do on the battlefield was to take up his arms and fight the battle that was his duty to fight. And so some of these battles that I fight are my duty to fight. I like to think all of them are. But yeah, sometimes I end up biting off some things that I shouldn't, perhaps, and then I have to reevaluate and look at that later. But I am poised to take up the fights that I have to take up, that I'm duty bound to take up as a mother, as a citizen, as a woman, as a human being on this earth, as a living being, as somebody who believes um, in consent. And so there are a bunch of different things that I will kind of take up arms against. That doesn't mean that I have to sit in judgment of the people, though. It just means that I have to accept my duty and do what's in front of me. So I'm working on that, and I invite you to work on that with me. And next time you come across somebody who is full of conspiracy theories and or doesn't believe that the virus is something real, or believes that our government is out to get us, and I'm going to say with this administration, it makes it really hard to kind of argue against that. But the bottom line is, next time I come across these people, I'm going to think about how maybe they're at their 18, 19, 20 year of, where I was, and how I grew out of that. And perhaps that they'll grow into some more compassion and empathy and belonging and unity, because that's where the wisdom is, and the wisdom comes from. But in the meantime, I'm going to try to sit back and judge a little bit less, but stay focused on my duty and the battles in front of me and be ready for them, but not necessarily make an ass of myself by judging people the way that has become too easy for me to do during this Trump administration. I'm sorry, it is. It's just way too easy. And that's why I'm grateful for these opportunities to sit back and refocus and start again and say, okay, new eyes, new cognition, and new reframe. So that's my 2 cents on judging people and how to kind of not judge people, maybe like the trick behind that, so we can convince ourselves that we ought to give understanding and compassion where possible. Thank you for joining me again, and I hope you will join me again another time. This is Sunena. Namaste.